Hi guys, and welcome to today's show, Autism Journeys. I'm delighted to say we've got a fabulous lineup today. We've got Mr. Joe Rossa, who's the founder of Ireland's first ever radio station specifically for autism. It's called Autism Radio. Then we're going to have a girl called Cleana from CyberSafe Ireland on to talk to us about safety on the internet and so on and so forth. And lastly, we've got the lovely Maeve, a girl from here at UCC. She is the Disability and Equality Officer, as far as I remember. Here, she's going to talk to us about the challenges that people might face as students in UCC and other institutions around Ireland. So I'm just going to welcome our first guest, Joe. So, hi Joe, and welcome to the show.
Hi, great to be here.
Joe, I'm delighted to have you on the show, and I'm really, really excited about this upcoming radio show, station that's due to start on the 2nd of April. So I'm going to ask you your first question. Tell me, what exactly is Autism Radio?
Well, Autism Radio will be a radio station that will be informative, educational and entertaining, and it will be all based around the subject of autism.
Tell me, is it going to be a station dedicated solely to all things autism, I suppose, to strategies and people speaking on it and so on?
Yeah, we want to look at all the aspects of autism. As you and I discussed on the phone, it's so fragmented that you could be around for 100 years and still not get it all together.
Absolutely.
So what we're trying to do is to put shows together. One show, like during the whole of the first week, is going to deal with education from the moment the child registered in, a junior infants all the way through to third level. And hopefully our guests talking about their educational experiences themselves. We talk about services, we talk about diagnosis, we talk about, funding and everything else. So it could literally be a very informative radio station. But there's also going to be the funny side of things, and there's going to be the lighthearted side of things as well. Because, our kids are very special, and they can do wonderful things, and we're going to try and celebrate them as well. So the last programme each day is going to be called My Autism Story.
Fab.
And it will be presented by a young woman, and they will be telling us their story of autism and what they've done. They may be musicians, they may write poetry, that type of thing.
Great.
We're celebrating as well.
Great, Joe. Can I ask you, why this week? Why the 2nd of April, for all people that don't know why?
Well, Autism Awareness Day, and we thought it would just be good to put it on. Now, we had to think about it because obviously it being Easter this year, we put a bit of a slant onto it, but we decided, no, it was worth doing for World Autism Awareness Day, and that recognises that. We thought it was a good idea. So that's why it's coming on. It's coming out for a week, then we're off for 2 weeks, and we're back on the 23rd. Why are we back on the 23rd? We want to finish off the month as well. So that's what we're going to do. We've a week coming up to the 8th, and then we're back on the 23rd, up to the 29th.
Great. Can I ask you, Joe, just on a side note, do you have all slots filled, or would it be good to have people contact you to get on board to see what they can offer?
Very hard to get a radio station for the ground up, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Even harder to try and find the type of presenters that can present the show.
Can I ask you, Joe, I know you and I discussed it, but can I ask you, what was your motivation for organising this project?
Well, I've been in radio, as I told you, since I was 15. 53 now, so it's been a long time.
Okay.
And I've done a lot of things. And I recently listened to a station called Walk in My Shoes, which dealt with mental illness.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, well, we could do this. I have a son who has autism, and he's had a very, very bad time of it. And we as parents have been, through the mill trying to get him the services and get him looked after. Now, thankfully, he's come out the other end. But we thought, this would be interesting if we could put on a radio station similar to Walk in My Shoes that would help people who may be experiencing exactly the same things that we experienced with our son, and to help them to know that first, they're not alone, and second of all, there are services out there. It's just so fragmented at the moment, as we discussed, that nobody knows for sure what is actually out there and what isn't. And, it can be like walking into a dark room and trying to find your way around. So I thought this would be a good thing. My son is my hero. I think he's brilliant. Every morning he gets up, he faces the world. He turns his face to the world that can be really nasty and cruel to him at times. And I think that's fabulous. And if he could do that, well, hey, let's see if we can celebrate other people like our son. And that was mainly the reason why my son Oisín was basically one of the reasons why I taught this. This is it, yeah.
Good. Now, I know you mentioned that you're going to have somebody speaking at the end of every day about their own autism journey or whatever. What other kind of topics can people... I know you said education as well. Will people have the opportunity to hear other parents or other individuals with autism and so on?
The one thing to remember here is this is not a political radio station.
Yeah.
We are not going after the government or anything else. What we're trying to do is educate. So, yes, people will have a chance to phone in and to, have a discussion with the different topics that we will be doing. So it's got to be inclusive. We've got to have people who feel that they can come on and talk. But it's not a political radio station. We make that quite clear, because we're licensed by the Broadcasting Commission of Ireland, as you guys are as well, Broadcasting Authority, and we have standards to keep. So anybody that thinks that we're getting involved in the station, which everybody is welcome to do, but if they think it's a political statement, then they need not come near us, because that's not what it is.
This is about raising awareness, I suppose, and creating a positive space for people with autism and so on.
This is about, exactly. Firstly, autism, and then everything that we can do underneath that, like raising awareness, educating,
sharing information,
informing,
strategies, everything.
Look, everything, and I'm very positive of this. They're actually putting the studio in behind me at the moment while I'm talking to you.
Very good.
And it's very exciting, but we're actually quite excited about it, because the amount of support we're getting from people is brilliant. And if you think of it, we're only going to be broadcasting to Dublin and to Cork for this licence run, but we will be online. So people will be able to tune in online, on the TuneIn app or wherever people like to listen to their online stations.
Yeah.
So we're on 105.2 in Dublin.
Okay.
And in Cork we will be on 106.7.
Okay.
So we'd start testing on Sunday evening, and then Monday at 12 midday we'll be launching. And we're really excited about it, even though there's a lot of work. The guys are walking in and out with stuff over their shoulders here as I talk to you. So it's fun in that respect, but also it's challenging.
Yeah,
to get it on.
I'd say the excitement and the anticipation is just everything all at once now. With regards to online listening, Joe, will people have the opportunity? Do they just Google autismradio.ie, or how will they access a live link?
We decided to be a little bit autism about this, so we have autismradio.blue.
Okay. Autismradio.blue. And if people Google autismradio.blue, they will be directed straight to a listen live link.
They come on to the station, and if they hit the listen live page on the station, there's a big button there that you press, and
great.
At the moment that stream is off because they're working away there, but that's what they can do. Or if they're in Cork or Dublin, they want to listen on FM, we gave you the frequencies there that they can do that.
The 105.2 in Dublin, 106.7 in Cork.
In Cork, they'll become live on Sunday evening about 6 o'clock, so we start testing around that time, so people can tune in their car radio and leave it there.
Great.
And they'll find us there the next morning.
Great. And listen, Joe, with regards to the shows then and so on, will they be available to listen back to online after they've aired?
Yeah, so what happens is we come on the air each day at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
And we go off at 4. And at 4 o'clock then we repeat the previous 6 hours.
Okay.
So we repeat that up to 10 o'clock, right? Yeah. Then after that our web people will be taking those shows and compressing them into smaller files so that they can be listened to. And yes, there will be a page on the website, and you'll be able to listen to particular shows. That's the plan.
Great, and they will be available long term if they're up on the website as listen back little podcasts.
Yes, what we're thinking of doing here is to make sure that those programs will always be available to people to download them or to listen to them. Because even though we're only on for 2 weeks, we need to keep that momentum there, keep a place where people can come along and say, okay, I'm going to listen to that show again. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Because yourself when you're on the run, you listen to something, you think that's good. But you're on the run, you're doing stuff and you forget about it. But isn't it great when you can go back and just sit down with the headphones on or whatever and really listen to the programme?
Exactly. And I suppose we're not the only autism people on a journey. Like, we're not the only people on an autism journey right now. There are people that will be up and coming with new diagnoses and so on that will need to be able to find information somewhere.
And the shocking statistic being that 1 in every 50 children born in Ireland is going to have some form, not, one particular form, but some form, be it Asperger's or whatever, of autism. So this is not something that,
it's not something that's going away, really.
No,
exactly.
As you know yourself, because you're down there and you've got the light going down there and you're informing people down there, and there's other programs around the country. And if you actually explore it like I did, there's not a country in the world that doesn't have some type of a radio station, be it online or not, dealing with this subject.
Absolutely.
So it's very real, especially to parents like ourselves. It's a very real thing, but it's even more real to our kids that live with it.
Exactly, and I suppose letting people know about autism, making sure that people are informed, ensures that our kids' journeys are that little bit more easy, and they are given better opportunity to access different things when people understand how they function and where they're coming from.
See, we've got to get people away from this idea that the child throwing a tantrum in Duns is a bold boy.
Yeah. Exactly.
Not so, or the young man who has Asperger's and just can't go into that room full of people. He's not unsociable. He just can't deal with it. And else we've got to educate people.
Exactly.
I find that if you educate somebody, you will get more from them. If they just walk around with their noses up in the air saying, he's a bold boy, that's a bold girl, don't have anything to do with them, or give them a good slap. I hate that word, give them a good slap.
Oh, yeah.
That's not going to sort anything out,
Yeah.
So why don't we teach you about our children, and then you'll be able to deal with it. G4S, which is our sponsor, they have trained every one of their security people that do security in shopping centres around the country in how to deal with an autism upset in their store. So instead of going down and going, you'll have to go out with it, they actually know how to approach the parent, they know how to help the child, and that's really
invaluable.
big.
Invaluable,
and that's why G4S is sponsoring this, because they want us to tell everybody about how you can actually look after a woman in the shop that has a kid on the floor screaming his head off and a basket full of shopping and stuff like that. And once you know these things, it's very easy. Like if you're a first responder, you know how to help somebody who's having a heart attack. It's the same thing. You could go over and say, I understand what you're going through. Can I do anything for you?
Yeah.
And isn't that what you love to hear? I mean, can I do anything for you? Instead of, you see the eyes and the faces, they walk by and they look at you. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to educate as well. Very important. So it's,
definitely, and I think if you're educating at that level, if you're educating from the top down, it does tend to prevent any things escalating, we'd say. I'm thinking in my own head as you're speaking, I'm wondering, do Gardaí have training like this, or do doctors, do medical staff have training like this? It would be interesting to know whether or not they did.
Well, our son has an assistance dog, an autism assistance dog, and there's another great area where people, can really be informed about this.
Yeah.
But he, in fairness, he goes up to Tala Hospital for a blood test all the time, and the nurses up there are fabulous. The dog goes in with him. The dog sits on the floor. He puts out his arm. He gets his blood taken, and himself and the dog go back out again. Before that dog, there was absolute pandemonium.
Yeah.
So they know, and they're brilliant. I'm not so sure about Gardaí and other personnel, but it is something that we should be training, because autism is here.
Yeah.
It's not like, the measles or something that will come and go. It's not going to go. And we just have to learn how to deal with it and learn how to help people who are living with autism, both the parents and the young people themselves. And if you can help somebody by just going over and saying, are you okay? Or picking up the bag of, shopping that may have gone all over the place. That would mean so much to a mother trying to deal with a meltdown of their child, instead of, castigating them or whatever, because that doesn't get the mother anywhere, and it certainly doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's...
I suppose the more education, the more awareness raised, the less need there is for somebody to have that visual of an assistance dog for people to understand that the person has autism. If people understand autism, there won't need to be that visual cue almost, do you know?
So some people have this idea that the autistic child somehow looks differently.
Yeah.
And acts differently. But I can tell you that if you put my son in a room with 25 neurotypical children, you wouldn't be able to pick him out.
Absolutely.
Now, you could put other children in there and you would be able to pick it out, and that's the point. Like, for example, I have Parkinson's. Well, you wouldn't know that by looking at me because my medication works. Oisin has autism. You wouldn't know that by looking at him until
Exactly.
There's a meltdown, and then you're looking at them. So you can't just walk out and go, here's autism. It's not as if they don't wear a tag.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you, in your show, and I listened to it last week and stuff, you are getting that same point out that we're trying to get out as well.
Yeah.
Look, there's so much more to this. And the fact that you're on the air so long shows that, it's not like the measles, it's not going away, but you're informing people, and I'm sure, given the amount of feedback that you get on your Facebook and stuff, that people are actually getting what you're saying to them.
Absolutely.
Because you're saying it to them, one, as a broadcaster, but the big one is as a parent.
Exactly. It's about putting the personal touch and letting people know that things go up and down, and that you get through things regardless, and that everybody has the potential to get through things as they come up. That we all face the same challenges at different points.
We do.
I suppose.
And the big saying around is, you've met one child with autism, you haven't met everyone.
Yeah.
And it's true. Children can have similar traits, but it doesn't necessarily mean they have exactly the same traits.
Exactly.
And that's very important to remember. There's also one other thing I want to say about the gang here at Autism Radio. They are all parents.
I was actually, that was going to be my next question, Joe. How many people are involved, and how many of them have personal connections to autism?
Everybody that is involved with the team. I know we've got about 20 people so far now, and we're still going through people's emails and trying to slot them in, because it's very important that we put them in to a place that, where they're happy with, and the show they're doing, because not everybody can walk into a radio studio like you and I, sit down and go, right, let's do this.
Yeah.
So we have to help people, and, there will be sometimes, I'm sure, during the week where we're going to have mishaps and stuff, but we'll deal with that. But yeah, everybody on the company side, Heartbeat FM Radio Services, we all are parents.
Yeah.
Then we have Autism Ireland, who are partnering us with that. They're all parents. And G4S, as I explained to you earlier on, are very autism aware.
Yeah.
And they have been wonderful. But the managing director there, his son, has autism. So you can understand that. It's all over there. So everybody involved. Yeah.
And I think that'll bring that passion and that power to drive through into the radio station, and it will be the thing that will create the most wonderful experience and will be the drive behind it,
And there's nothing to say that we can't do this next year and do it a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
If it becomes something that people want, we will listen to people and hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
But having said it earlier on, your show was there for so long because people want it there. And, this would be the same with the Autism Radio, please God, kind of like Christmas FM. You see us every April.
That's what I was going to ask you that. Is it going to be an annual? Or I'm wondering, would there be an outlet to have it air once a week or twice a week or every day? Or, I'm wondering, is there space to progress and move forward?
Well, I think it's a very bold step that the Broadcasting Authority have taken by licensing us.
Yeah.
So they obviously have some confidence in the fact that, we're going to do what we say, and they would have had many of meetings with us about it, so they would know what we're doing. So yes, the first thing is, let's see what we can do here. Let's see how it goes, and let's sit down afterwards and say, okay, well, do we go back and do this again? Or do we do it, as you said, one day a week? Do we do it, 1 week? Unfortunately, at the moment, the temporary license situation only gives you 30 days in any year.
Yeah.
And the only reason we've done Dublin and Cork this year is because finance. We'd love to have covered Ireland and stuff like that, but unfortunately we can't. But we're online, so people will be able to listen to
so everyone can listen anyway.
Yeah.
Good.
So, who knows what's going to happen at the end of this, but certainly I think what the crowd of people behind me are doing and the amount of work that's gone into it has been amazing. Yeah. And if it turns out anything like we hope it does,
it'll be a permanent fantastic fixture within moments, we'd say, Joe.
Well, I hope so, yeah.
Definitely. Now, I'll just let people know that I am going to be involved in it, Joe, that I am going to do a radio a show or two, and that actually some of my podcasts that I've agreed for you to use them, those involving Tony Atwood and like those that would be great for sharing strategies and so on and so forth. So the people will have the opportunity to listen back to those as well, And
the people will have the opportunity in Dublin to hear what people are lucky enough to listen to in Cork at the moment, which is your programme and you. And I think that would be fabulous because, having had that conversation with you, and never mind all the hiccups that came after
exactly.
it. That conversation we had is the same conversation you have with every parent. We all want the same thing, and it all comes down to the same thing: better lives for our children, better lives for the parents of our children.
Absolutely,
you know?
Absolutely. Listen, Joe, one final question for you. How can people get in touch, and how can people get on board if they are interested? Is there information to contact?
If you want to, yes, if you want to volunteer, you can email volunteers@autismradio.blue.
Okay, so it's volunteers at autismradio.blue.
Blue, yeah.
Okay.
And, same if you want just information about the station, info at, same address. We're on Facebook, as you know yourself.
Yeah.
And we are on Instagram, which is picture things, they tell me.
Okay, well, you're like myself. I'm that generation before this big social media movement, unfortunately. So
you have said that you're going to do a show for us, and we're very interested in hearing from the groups and that around Cork.
Yeah.
So they can contact you if they're in Cork and they want to do this. But I also wanted to say that we're looking into the possibility, and I discussed this with you, of doing one show on the final week, the entire one day of the final week from Cork. So keeping you posted on that, and hopefully if that turns out, then we can really get the groups in, and a whole day of talking about autism and the groups in Cork.
Fab. So I suppose if people want to contact me directly as well, you can contact me on autismjourneysfm@gmail.com is the email address, or indeed the Autism Journeys radio show page on Facebook, and I can let you know any progress that people make with that.
Absolutely, and we're really delighted to have you on board, and we're delighted to be able to broadcast to the people of Cork as well, and we hope that they will get behind this and contact you, because not everybody can get on the train and come up to Dublin, and not everybody can stand on doing a telephone interview. So get in touch with your show, and all you're going to be doing is what you do so brilliantly, but they'll hear you in them as well.
Perfect. Listen, Joe, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch again soon, and good luck with all the organising that's going on behind you today. And sure, I'll speak to you soon. Thanks a million, Joe.
20 decades of the rosary for tonight, okay?
Oh, God, say no more. Thanks a million, Joe. Take care.
Talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The club isn't the best place to find the lovers, so the bar is where I go. Me and my friends at the table doing shots, tripping fast, and then we talk slow. And you come over and start up a conversation with just me, and trust me, I'll give it a chance. Now take my hand, stop it, and the man on the jukebox, and then we start to dance. And now I'm singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me. Say, boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. Last night you were in my room, and now my bedsheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. Well, I'm in love with your body.
And now, guys, I'm absolutely delighted. I've actually got Cliona from CyberSafe Ireland, the lady who was due to be on last week, is actually on the line and ready to speak to us today and give us some pointers on how to keep ourselves and those we support safe. Hi, Cliona, and thanks a million for agreeing to come on the air and joining us today.
Oh, good afternoon, Sharon.
Cliona, I'm going to get right into it, and I'm going to ask you, first of all, I'm going to say thanks a million for agreeing to come back on. I know that there was a little bit of a hiccup last week, scheduling and all that, and sure, we're lucky, we're delighted that you're on today, so all is good, we'd say. And I might just start with, what kind of questions should parents ask when talking about internet quests with their children?
What kind of questions should they ask?
What kind of questions should they ask their children when they're talking about internet quests and internet searches and all that with their children?
Well, I think it is hugely important that parents are engaged in what their kids are doing, whatever their kids are doing. We would generally be talking to kids who are preteens, so usually 8 to 13 years old. And we find they're doing a huge spectrum of activities online, from social media messaging apps to online gaming. And I suppose it's being familiar with whatever your child is doing online, and looking into that and whether it's an okay environment for your child to be in, and doing a bit of research on it, and then sitting down with your child and agreeing the rules around it. So there are some important questions there. If they're gaming online, for instance, who are they playing with? And that's a very, very important question.
Okay. Are there any safe, safe engine searches first for younger people, that younger people might access things without these adult type pop-ups and so on?
Yeah, there are a few search engines that are aimed at children's use. There's more and more of those emerging now. What I would say to parents is a lot of the time, kids are using shared devices.
Yeah.
And of course the parents will be using, standard search engines such as Google. There are safeguards on most search engines that you can apply. So for instance, if you're using Google, you can put something called Safe Search on it. Okay. And it's very easy to apply. If anyone wants to know, there's lots of kind of different safeguards out there and parental controls on devices that's useful for parents to know about. Now, they're very easy to apply if you have instructions on them. If anyone wants more information on that, on our website, which is cybersafeireland.org, we have a page in the parents section, which is called Parental Controls. If you have a look in the parents menu,
okay.
And it is a simple page that literally links to instructions for applying Google Safe Search, or restrictions on YouTube, or putting restrictions on an Xbox or something like that. It's easy once you know how.
Great. I think that's the thing, Clean. I think a lot of us are parents. We'd say we're a generation behind our children who are very tech savvy today, and we seem to be playing catch up all of the time.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it feels like that, but what we need to remember is, we are the parents, and we are the ones with the maturity to make smart decisions. And so sometimes it seems that kids know an awful lot more about us, or an awful lot more than us about technology. And certainly they're very, very comfortable with it. There's no fear factor there. They just, they launch straight in. But it is important, we are the parents, and really, the only way that kids are going to get smart about using technology and be safe online is if we're part of that process, and we're working with them and coaching them really on how to do it.
Great. Can I ask you, Cleena, for teenagers and young adults, how do they ensure their own personal safety then when you move beyond that parental restrictions stage? Sure,
yeah, because actually it's a very good point, Aaron. Once they get to a certain age, really, the technology restrictions are less useful, and older kids often find a way around them. So we'd say very strongly to parents, parental controls and technology that you can use. It's not a full parenting solution. It is all about parenting, and they're just a useful tool. As the kids get older, it's more about really, I suppose, getting them to the point where they're making smart decisions. So, from a very early age, if you can start, getting in that messaging there. So, for instance, if they start using social media and messaging apps, look into those apps yourself. Do it. It's very easy to do research on them. There's great resources out there, like commonsensemedia.org is one where you can do quick reviews on apps and games. Webwise.ie is the internet safety, the National Internet Safety site. There's our own site. There's lots of places where you can find out about different apps. Check them out, but not just checking out the risks and if you're happy for your child to be on it, but check out the safeguards as well, like privacy settings. Because what you really want is, from a very early age, to whatever extent your child is online, that they're learning to apply those safeguards themselves, that they're learning there's a value to their data, that they don't want to be sharing with everyone, that actually not everybody out there is good. And, while most people in the world are good, the internet opens them up to a whole lot of other people. And there are potentially, people out there that might cause them harm. And, so what you really want is, by the time they get to the point, in their teens where you're trying to balance their privacy and, protecting them, and keeping them safe and keeping them happy, you want them to have got to the point where actually they are being smart about what they're doing. And really, that's what it's about. It's about parenting. It's about coaching. It's about empowering them to to use the internet in a smarter way, because at that stage, to a certain extent, you're going to have to let go and leave them to it.
Can I ask you, Cliona, with regards to these social media apps? I know that
Sure.
we have many teenagers in our home at the moment, and these social media apps, they're like gobbledygook to myself. But I know that there's a couple of them that keep coming up as kind of inappropriate or kind of ones to avoid. Are there any ones that you know of off the top of your head that parents need to be kind of checking out their children's devices for, to make sure that they're not being exposed to known types of inappropriate social media?
Sure. I mean, what I would say is all of the social media and messaging apps present a certain amount of risk, and they all present similar risks.
Absolutely.
So like we're coming across very young children on Snapchat, for instance, or on Instagram or on Musical.ly, and these are all social media apps, and there are risks attached to all of them. So it's important, I suppose, that parents don't feel that there's safe apps out there and there's bad apps out there. The reality is they all present risk.
Okay.
Now, there would be apps which we would come across less in the primary schools, but we do occasionally come across, and that maybe would be seen more in use by teens. And I suppose, the type of apps to watch out for, would be ones which there's one called Yubo, for instance, which used to be called Yellow, and was also known as the Tinder for teens. And that's one of many apps where you can hook up with people based on your location. And it really is a kind of hookup app in a lot of ways. Not all teenagers or children would be using it in that way, but it'd be one if we came across it. Certainly in primary schools, we would certainly make the school aware of it, so that they can make parents aware of it. Other ones like Kik, which there's been quite a lot of talk in the media. We would not come across kids in primary school using it often at all.
Okay.
But it would be one where it's very easy to chat anonymously, and there's a lot of public chat groups on it.
Okay.
It's very easy potentially for people to get into private chat groups. So that would be one, I suppose, where there's a greater element maybe of stranger danger.
Okay.
There's another one called House Party we come across sometimes, where again, there's less risks in some ways because the kids don't tend to be sharing images or things like that, but there's more risk of stranger danger because that's kind of the whole idea of it.
Yeah.
And another thing for parents to watch out for, and really the most important thing, is to be having the conversations around these types of apps and why people use them, is feedback apps. So one that was recently removed from the App Store and the Play Store recently was called Saraha.
Okay.
I mean, there could be kids out there that have already downloaded and are still using it, or using it through other means or online. But what that is a feedback app. And it's one of these apps which kids are, able to link to their Snapchat account, and they could then send out a link to all their friends saying, provide feedback on me.
Okay.
Now, of course, that is so open to
detrimental to a child's self-esteem and so on.
Of course, and children are at that age where they're potentially looking for attention or looking for affirmation, or their self-esteem is quite fragile. So it might seem like a good idea to them at the time to be asking their friends or people in their peer group for anonymous feedback, but it is so open to abuse. So definitely keep an eye out for feedback style apps.
Perfect. I'm thinking of children or individuals with autism, particularly Cliona, and like, as you know, most with autism have a difficulty reading a situation or interpreting the language used. So you'd be a little bit more worried that they may be more vulnerable to be taken advantage of. Do you have any suggestions on how to, we'd say, I suppose, help with it or protect these more vulnerable children?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I should say I'm absolutely not an expert on autism, but certainly we would be aware of it, and when we go into schools and speak to kids, a lot of the time there would be kids on the autism spectrum, within the classroom, and we would be very careful that, in our messaging there's no ambiguity, or as little ambiguity as possible.
Okay.
And I think that is really, really important. I think there have to be hard and fast rules. Parents will know, a parent of a child who is autistic, know their child best, and will know how to, I suppose, explain things to their child best. But certainly we'd advise, that, everything is very, I suppose, black and white. It can be useful to use checklists and, even written checklists, for instance, for defining who is a friend, and, so we'd go into schools and we talk to kids about, you don't know somebody in real life, you don't really know who they are, and they could be anyone, that person that is, has these lovely photos and looks like a 12-year-old boy and sounds like a 12-year-old boy, and is sharing videos of a 12-year-old boy. They may not be his photos and his videos that he's sharing, and that could actually be somebody else. That could be a 50-year-old man, that could be a 90-year-old woman, it could be anyone. So it's important, I suppose, to find for, is a stranger, and they'd be aware as well. A lot of kids are out there and they're playing games online. They're using platforms like Roblox, for instance, or they're even playing Minecraft, and games like that, and they're playing them on a server. And a lot of the time, they may feel that somebody who they've been playing with games for a while is actually a friend. So I suppose very carefully defining things like that. Really useful to check out privacy settings together. And things like location information. Are they sharing location information on their device?
Yeah.
That's really good for any child. I think what is very important as well is that sometimes I suppose we're not just worried about safety aspects and protecting children online. Sometimes I think kids who have autism maybe find it harder to put themselves in the shoes of somebody else.
Yeah.
I think it's called theory of mind.
That's right.
And, so it can be very hard to understand, for them to understand maybe the impact on somebody else. I think use your expertise as a parent who kind of knows your child best here, and help them to kind of, walk them through it step by step with real examples. So try and personalise, something for your own child. So if you're talking about, the fact that if somebody sends a video and, it's mean about somebody else, they may not understand that actually other people might find this mean. But if you relate it back to something that maybe means something to them, like, what if this happened to your little sister? Or what if this happened to your cousin? People that they care about. And, that can help personalising it. They can really kind of understand the impact. And for any child out there, like we're finding a lot of children, they're just not understanding because there's no eye contact when they're online.
Absolutely.
And they're just not understanding the impact. So, your child is on the spectrum, or those conversations really do need to be had, and they need to be had again and again, just as we do in real life, from when they're very, very small. It's just a question of applying it to their digital lives.
Yeah. And I suppose...
Yeah.
No, go ahead, Cliona.
No, I was just going to say in the online gaming environment as well, often there's quite toxic behaviour in there.
Yeah.
From kids who aren't toxic, and it's they just maybe don't understand that actually, saying you're rubbish at a game, or, that somebody might be rubbish at a game, but that could be hurtful to someone, and that can escalate and other people can get involved. So really it's trying to personalise it for them and trying to walk them through it if you can.
Yeah, because I suppose the flip side really is that many of our kids do prefer interacting on the internet because it does take that face-to-face challenge out of it, and it does take the pressure off them for having to focus on eye contact or read non-verbal communications, or like it's definitely a way in which to interact without that pressure to perform. Do you know? Yeah. So like there's huge positives and huge benefits to the internet when used in the correct way as well. Do you know?
Absolutely. It's just, I suppose, a question of being part of that process with them, really keeping an eye on what they're doing, and then stepping in as you need to, with the conversations, talking. So, for instance, for any child out there, you really want to, get this message across that actually what you put online,
Stays
can
forever.
be there for a long time. Yeah. Now you still want them, if the kids will make this, you always want to make it very clear, look, things are fixable, you can always come to me if you're worried about anything. That's really important. But, when you want to get across those messages, like, if you put something online, a lot of people can see it and people can share it. It's a good idea to maybe put it in the context of the relationship. So saying something like, look, if you put something online lots of people like, your auntie, uncle, and, that cousin
Yeah.
John and your sister can see it. But there might also be people out there who can see it as well, and they might have bad intentions. So you've got to think about...
It's letting them know the big picture all of the time, really, so as well.
Exactly, and it's conversations like that. We would often go into, when we went to schools, the kids would talk to us about creeps, and that would be the kind of language that they have, that maybe we wouldn't use as an adult, but you know exactly what they're talking about.
Exactly, yeah.
It is, I suppose, important as well to be quite black and white in that if you say, there are creepy people on the internet, that you've got to watch out for, a child that is on the spectrum might quite literally and be looking for the person who looks creepy, rather than the person who has a puppy in their profile.
Yeah,
so
I know what you mean.
There's so many conversations like that, and it's about making sure there's no ambiguity there, and that you're repeating those messages again and again, and keeping an eye on what they're doing, so you can really step in if there's...
So I suppose the first step really, Cliona, is parents literally sitting down with the child and starting a conversation. That is the very first step, and figuring out what the first step is to take after that, then dependent upon the child's individual functioning, needs, ability, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and as well, don't be afraid of the technology. It's the more engaged you can be in it, the better. The more positive conversations you can have in it. Not waiting for something to happen or for the child to do something wrong. Talking about what they love, who they love on YouTube. What games they like playing. Sitting down with them. Getting them to help you understand, I suppose, who they're playing with, what kind of conversations they're having, what stuff comes up, and trying to be as open as possible. And not, parents really don't feel like you have to be a tech expert. You don't. This is really about parenting. It really is. And there's some parents out there have incredible parenting skills, but they're terrified of this.
Yeah.
The reality is, it's just another part of it. Let your kids make you smarter about this stuff, because you have so much that they need from you as well. But it needs to be together. Parents need to be part of the process.
Perfect. Cliona, I've loads of other questions, but I suppose one last one for you would be, where can parents check out apps and websites and their safety and age rating, and then where can parents find out more information on how to keep people safe?
Okay, well, certainly our website, cybersafeireland.org, we have a parent section on that. There's useful things on that, like, the links to parental control options. And also there's a really nice family agreement in the parent section. There's a nice video on simple steps that you can take. Webwise.ie is the Irish Internet Safety website, the national website, and that's got loads of resources on it for schools and for parents. What I find really useful, if you want to do a quick review on an app or a game before your child, if your child is saying they really want to be on it, commonsensemedia.org is a great one, and that'll give you 8 ratings, it'll give you parents' reviews, it'll give you their own reviews. I know childnet.com has some resources there for children who are on the autism spectrum, I think mainly for secondary schools.
Great.
But it'd be worth checking out their STAR toolkit. And there's lots and lots of resources out there, so don't be terrified of this. So it is something else that we as parents, have to take on and can do. And the most important thing is that parents start the process, and they're having the regular conversations and setting rules and keeping an eye on what their kids are doing.
Cliona, that's absolutely great. Thank you so much for coming on the show today and for sharing that information. I've no doubt you've put lots of parents' minds at ease, knowing that they're probably better equipped than what they thought they were.
Good. Thanks very much.
Cliona, thanks a million. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Now, just to finish up the show today, I'm lucky enough to have the lovely Caelan McCarthy here with me this afternoon. He's actually going to discuss with a girl called Maeve Richardson what it's like to be a person on the autism spectrum in UCC. I won't say any more. I'll actually let the two lads speak themselves.
Okay, hi guys. So firstly, Maeve, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate you taking out the time. Perfect. And just again, congratulations on your victory. So Maeve was actually elected to the Equality Officer on the UC Student Union just a couple of weeks ago, and we were all really excited, really enthusiastic. She was a fantastic candidate, and she's going to bring a lot to the table. So firstly, I suppose what I'd like to ask you is just what exactly the role of the Equality Officer is in UCC, and what kind of demographics fall under your care, and what you specifically want to tackle as this year's brand new Equality Officer.
So the Equality Officer is in charge of a 7-person panel called the Equality Working Group. So there's Disability Officer, Mature Students, International Students, Gender Equality, LGBT rights, environmental and mental health.
Okay.
So it's to assist all those officers in creating policies and basically saying to the university and the Students' Union, this is what you should be doing to actively engage with these groups within the college. And
perfect.
I myself served as the Welfare and Equality Officer in the Irish Second Level Students' Union, so I was kind of ready to go again.
This natural progression almost.
Yeah, literally.
Perfect. And then what kind of things were you looking really specifically to tackle? What was your real selling point going into this position? What would you like to do in your year as Equality Officer?
Well, obviously I had autism spectrum disorder on my mind, having it myself.
Of course.
So sensory rooms are a huge thing. There's no kind of properly quiet area on campus.
God, no.
Like, with 21,000 students, the campus is very alive, very wild.
Absolutely.
It's just loud. And there was a temporary room set up during the elections, but not during Rag Week, which was obviously the louder one.
Of course, yeah.
So that kind of made no sense to me. So with the new student hub going in, I'm hoping to go talk to buildings and estates about seeing, can we allocate a space?
Fantastic.
Before we go protesting about it.
Yes, yeah, exactly. We'll take the easier route first before we go into anything more extreme.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm LGBT as well, but I didn't want that to be my single issue thing.
Absolutely, of course.
But I did want to be like, hello, I am this, please vote for me.
Well, of course,
so
yeah.
It's more like facilitating everyone.
Fantastic. So. Again, best of luck in it. I'm just conscious of the fact that we have like 5 minutes. So the big thing, I think, considering the fact that we're on a show called Autism Journeys, is your own autism journey. So could you take me through a little bit of what your experience was with, I suppose, the diagnostic process of ASD, how you found out, and how you, I suppose, dealt with that when you did find it?
Yeah. I was diagnosed when I was 7, so I'm the youngest child in my family. I have a brother and a sister. So they kind of noticed, like my parents noticed I was developing a bit differently. They were like, why isn't my child making eye contact with me? Was a huge thing. And stuff like that. And so I got picked for a thing called Reading Recovery, which was a tester program in my school.
Okay.
So I was kind of being used as a guinea pig for a program, and resource teacher kind of picked up on something's different here. So I sent off for a few tests, talked to people. I was quite young, so I don't really remember. So
absolutely.
Doctor was like, yeah, probably Asperger's syndrome. And then I was told at the age of 12, like, my parents handed me a book called Autism, the Universe and Everything.
Okay. So
I read it and I was like, oh, I relate to a lot of this. And my mom kind of went to the weird way and was like, oh, 2 of your cousins have this particular condition. And I was like, all right. And then she'd like, so do you. And I was like, okay, thanks.
Plot twist.
You too. And I was like, this makes a lot of sense.
Fair enough type thing.
Yeah.
No, fantastic. And obviously you seem to have kind of adjusted to that really well, and you've kind of adopted that. It really seems to me that you've gone beyond the whole I am autism part of it and gone towards the I have autism, which is obviously the way you want to be, and was really, really important for somebody with a diagnosis of AS.
Yeah.
Did you find that hard? Just, I know, because obviously if you learn at 12, that's kind of a transitionary time.
I was just going into secondary school. I was like,
there's another thing to be dealing with.
Yeah, I was very conscious of it, and like, Joe, I went to an all-girls school as well, so people always trying to hug me, and I was like child, no.
Stay away, absolutely.
So I've kind of got used to it since, like, I'm kind of more adapted. Like, if someone wants to give me a hug, I'm like, I'm ready.
Fine.
But I didn't deal with it that well in secondary school. As well, when I was, due to the recession, I'd lost my resource hours in school. Okay. So when they tried to kind of bring me back into resource hours in secondary school, I was like, no, I'm an independent woman now.
Exactly. You're like, I can deal with it myself.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'd say when I was about 16, I kind of was like, okay, no more angst, no more, I have autism, I'm not the embodiment of it. So I kind of moved on, and I kind of went for a thing of self-improvement and not letting it stop me from doing things. Like, I kind of learned to develop eye contact, like I'm staring at you now.
Oh, I can see that.
So it was just kind of moving on.
Perfect. So just moving on from the point that you were talking about, the fact that you kind of refuse, not that you refused resource hours, you're like, nah, I'm good, when you were off resource hours in secondary school. Did you find that your support in the secondary school environment then was very limited when you were moving forward in terms of exam arrangements if you needed them, or in terms of any additional kind of movement breaks that could be important for you to kind of focus in terms of...
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, this is perfect.
Yeah, my primary school were my primary school decided to put the things ahead of me. They contact my secondary school, were like, this is what she needs, so I didn't really have to do that much. And the problem with the resource hours in secondary school was it took me out of class.
I get you.
So I kind of only went when I needed something, and I made sure I had no classes on. So I was very...
There is that kind of social aspect of it where you're coming out and people start asking you why, and it can be quite, especially again when you're coming kind of 12, 13, 14, it's difficult enough as it is without having to explain an extra aspect to things.
Yeah.
The last question I have for you, and I think then Sharon wants to say something as well, but because I can see the gesturing frantically. The last question I'd have is just moving into college, because college, very different ball game, very different type of support that you can require, and obviously, as you say, there is kind of deficits in areas in terms of things like sensory rooms where there isn't that sensory support. How have you found the support in college for somebody particularly with a hidden disability? Has there been an understanding there, or has it been difficult to get your message across?
The students in general, you tell them, they don't really know what to do with that information, and it's just kind of like, don't be shouting, don't randomly touch me, I will probably shout at you.
That's fair.
But in UCC itself, it was nice having a personal advisor who is actually an expert in the area. And it was nice we kind of have, kind of group gatherings of people with Asperger's, and I have friends with Asperger's for the first time in my life. So it's nice having friends who experience the same.
Absolutely.
The world in the same way.
Yeah, you don't have to explain it to absolutely everyone you meet. It's very refreshing when you meet someone, they're like, no, I get this, it's fine. Yeah. And you're like, okay, fair enough, grand.
They were good for telling us about external services, so like Aspire and... where we can get counselling and stuff like that to deal with, which is something we definitely didn't have in secondary school.
Fantastic.
Maeve, can I ask you one final question, actually, just very quickly? What kind of support, should people coming in to university next year, for instance, what kind of support should they be looking for? Should they be looking for PAs, examination centres, etc.? What kind of things should people be asking about?
I think from the minute you enter the university, you should go to the DSS and see what they can do for you.
Okay.
I was lucky that I had, because I came in under their scheme, my exam supports were automatically put in place.
Great.
Perfect.
But as well, just making sure you meet your advisor. And this year, the advisor in charge of me was sick, so I never got my own orientation day.
Okay.
But for people with autism, it would be important to make sure you do get your personal orientation day, because orientation day on campus is wild, loud.
Okay. So I suppose you came through the DARE, which is the Disability Access Route to Education, exactly. And for those people that come in directly without accessing that route, it's important that they go to the DSS or the Disability Support Services, and that everything that they need, if they bring that to that service, that they will help them to organise whatever extra or additional need and supports they need.
They do academic support, social support, things like that.
Great.
They've really helped me settle in to university, especially the academic part.
Great. Maeve, thanks a million. I'm going to say thanks a million, and I leave Kayla and say final thanks.
First, literally, obviously, thank you so much for coming on. Again, the last point that I think is worth mentioning as well in terms of the DSS is the fact that regardless of whether or not you got supports in secondary school or you got the support you needed in secondary school, it's a different system, and if you didn't get access to those things, then you will. It's a lot easier, I suppose, to access them here, where you come in, you say what you need, and they are very much focused on helping you and dealing with you. So thank you so much for just I know it was very short, very brief insight, but I really, really appreciate you coming in, and we hope looking forward to seeing what big things you bring to the table next year.
I'm delighted to be here.
Happy days.
Maeve, thank you so much for coming on the air today, and best of luck. I've no doubt that you're going to change up the whole face of UCC in the coming 12 months. Well done in your victory, and good luck for the coming 12 months, okay? Guys, thanks so much for tuning in today and for listening. I hope that people found things beneficial, and we'll hope that you tune in again next time. And for the moment, actually, happy Autism Awareness Week and happy Autism Awareness Day. 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 Happy Autism Awareness Day.